The Brothers in Kayfabe. For over 2 seasons, the revolutionary force in brotherly kayfabe entertainment.
Hello everyone, this is Lord Alfred Hayes speaking to you from the
Brothers in Kayfabe
video control.
And now, Pro Wrestling and Being a Good Brother present The Brothers in Kayfabe.
And we are back. Now it's time for our interview with the one, the only, Jerry the Boss, Bostic. Jerry, how are you doing today?
I'm great, guys. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Hey,
we virtually here. I'm not physically here.
Yeah.
Virtually.
Yeah.
We wish you were physically here, but we're glad you're here nonetheless. So
maybe one day. Maybe one day. That's a very fitting Sandman shirt you have on.
Oh, thank you.
It is.
A friend of mine made this, so he sent me one, and it's one of my favorite shirts. So,
you know, I was very shocked in Wichita a couple of weeks ago just how over Sandman still is. You know, I was never a big ECW guy, really.
Yeah.
I mean, of course I'm familiar with it, but and we've had a lot of ECW people, but that was my first time working with him, and you know, even like, you know, that show when his entrance, you know, his music hit, you know, Enter Sandman. I mean, it's, you know, that's a timeless song, first of all. But like his entrance, out of all the people I've worked with, had to be top 5. I mean, it was great. And, you know, I guess he doesn't really drink anymore. So he was just pouring the beer in other people's mouths, and they were so happy for it to be done. You know, I went to the restroom during the intermission, and I guess I could have went to the bathroom in the back, but I just went to the public bathroom. And this guy was in there. He's like, "Oh man, it's like one of the greatest nights of my life." Sandman poured his beer all over me, and I was like, "Okay, I mean that's great." You know,
you say that he was at a show in New Jersey a couple days ago, and some people in a group that I'm in were posting a video of him pouring a beer down their throat, and I was like, "It's amazing that a guy that is just that over, and you know, he's over because of an entrance."
Yeah. You know, I think it's just the character in general, and it's amazing to see just the connection that you can have with people. You know, it's like I tell my people all the time, I'm like, you may not realize it, but whenever you connect with somebody emotionally, you come out and you're holding their emotions in the palm of your hand for this 10 minutes or however long they're out there, and it's up to you what you do with that. You know, you can take them along for this ride. Yeah. You can do so many different things with it. You can totally ignore them. I mean, you can totally just say, "Hey, we got this beforehand. This how it's going to go, no matter what." Or you can listen. You know, I always try to encourage them to listen to what they're telling you. If you listen to them, they're telling you when to go from one thing to the next.
Exactly.
And I'd say Sandman totally has that figured out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I see this a lot on social media. There's always a little thing of someone saying, "Okay, if you have to introduce wrestling to someone, you know, what are you going to show them?" And Sandman's entrances from like the ECW one night stands like are easily like one of the go-tos, because if you've no concept of professional wrestling or experience with it or watching it, you watch those entrances and just like how contagious, because you have the power of Metallica and how famous that song is, and just like how quickly the camaraderie of that just spreads. And it's just like, oh, like cool. Like, you know, if some random person on the street like poured beer like down my throat, like I'd be really upset.
Trying to fight him. Yeah. But with him, it's okay.
Yeah. It's like, man, it's just
that
the
was
atmosphere.
The Sandman. That's what you do.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a given, you know, and it's like they were waiting on him. They were literally waiting on him to come over there.
Right.
You know, but you're right. Yeah, if somebody did that in real life, I'd be like, "What's up, man?"
Yeah, exactly.
Know? But he gets a free pass, you know. But I think too, a lot of that too, you know, the music selection. You know, I always go over that whenever, you know, we're training people or bringing them up or whatever. Your music should be, first of all, your gimmick should be a natural extension of yourself. Because if you can't buy into it and you can't sell it, why would anybody buy it? But your music is right there with it. You know, your music has to be, that's a representation of your character too when you come out. And those things, whenever you get that right combination of both of them, somebody that understands what they're doing, and then they understand how the music goes with it, that's when you get something magical like that, you know. And oftentimes, I mean, look at Ultimate Warrior, same thing. You know, I mean, it didn't matter what he did in the ring. By the time he got there, you were like, oh man, oh my God, yes, like, shake those ropes. You know,
Right.
I mean, it made no difference. So that's when you know. I mean, you think about all the different things that make a superstar. The biggest superstars of all time at those phases of their lives, whenever they were carrying the ball, probably with the exception of Ric Flair, you know, that they weren't necessarily the best workers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that like look at Hogan. Hogan, I mean, he could work when he wanted. If you've ever seen any of his Japan work,
oh yeah,
but he was smart enough to realize like he didn't have to here. You know, look at Austin. Austin was a much better worker as Stone Cold Steve Austin or Stunning Steve Austin, but he didn't make it until he found himself character-wise, and then that didn't matter. It didn't matter he'd blown his knees out by then, and he wasn't quite the worker he used to be. It didn't matter. You know, I think the emotional connection of a character to fans is kind of underrated at this point. I think wrestling, we've seen wrestling shift so much. You know, wrestling used to be not customer based, character based, and it used to be your job to reach out and get those emotions in your palm of your hand. Now I think in a lot of ways it's shifted to moves, like what kind of cool moves can you do, whatever the case may be. And you know, you can do a 450 or whatever the cool new move is, but the second that you leave that town, if you didn't make that emotional connection with them, the next person that comes along doing that 450 or whatever the hell comes after the 450, you know, then they're cooler than you, and they already forgot about you because you did not make that connection.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right. I say it all the time, emotion over motion. And it's just this idea of like, yeah, like I'm all for like seeing great in-ring work, but what's the reason to make me want to watch that? Like, even with just natural storytelling, I was talking to a guy the other day about like wrestling tournaments are so cool because it's easy, low-hanging fruit of storytelling. Like, okay, here's this tournament to determine who's the best, and there's a natural story in that, but it's like,
yeah, there's a destination, you know where it's going.
Exactly.
And you know there's a purpose. There needs to be a purpose. There should be a purpose to everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Instead of just like, oh crap, we got like people here, we need to fill some time. 10-man tag.
Right.
What? I mean, I don't know about y'all, but that's some of the.
I don't go to a show for a 10-man tag.
Right. Yeah.
AEW, I think, internet community, don't come get me for this. I like AEW. I think it's hilarious. But like, they do more 6-man, 8-man, 10-man tags than anything I've ever seen on a wrestling show.
Yeah. And it's like gone for both companies. Gone are the days of, you know, every spot on the card had a purpose and there was a reason to watch. Now, obviously the main event's probably going to be a lot more exciting than the opening match, but there's still a reason to watch the opening match.
Exactly. And, you know, obviously, I mean, I'm not crapping on their booking. I actually enjoy, to some degree, almost every wrestling show on. I'm not the perfect booker either. There's been people that have rewritten my shows on the internet, and that's great. Y'all might be better at it than I am, and I'm okay with that. You know, and you know, like I said, I happen to like AEW. It just seems more often than not, there's a lot of people on that show. You know, one of my buddies, a Hall of Famer, he said, have you ever counted how many people are on an episode of Dynamite? And I was like, no. And he goes, I watched it one night, and in 2 hours, they had 55 people on television. I was like, wow. I had never thought about it like that. But, you know, I mean, that's an awful lot of people in 2 hours. And honestly, you know, AEW is my favorite show to watch right now because I do find it entertaining. But I also go into it watching it like, okay, I don't expect this to make a lot of sense in certain areas, and I'm okay with it. You know, like whenever they came out dressed up like Space Jam, I watched that like 2 or 3 times and laughed so hard, like I just kept watching. I thought that was great.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, what is you guys' favorite show to watch right now? There's no right or wrong answer.
Right now, I watch primarily Dynamite. I watch a little bit of Smackdown. I don't really get the time to watch Raw. There's just too much of it
You don't
for
get
me.
the time, or you don't make time.
I don't make the time. If I made the time, my wife might
I
leave
think
me.
at this
But
point, there's only so many hours you can watch wrestling a week.
Yeah.
That is true. And it's fantastic there's so much wrestling on. But yeah, if you have a significant other, you can't sit there and watch it nonstop.
I would say right now my favorite show is Dynamite, and followed closely by Impact.
Impact. See, I can't even get Impact. I have Hulu Live. Access is even on Impact, or isn't even on Hulu Live.
Yeah.
I think SmackDown right now is the best out of the WWE shows, which is odd to me because I thought for the longest NXT was better, and I'm not really sure what they have going on right now. I think
that's super fair.
It's a big transition for them, and I'm not against the color schemes or the lighting or anything like that. I think it's nice and it's different, but it seems like they really tried to gut the whole program, and I don't know. If I was going to gut one of the three programs, it probably would have been Monday Night Raw.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But once again, I'm not knocking WWE. They're making more money than they've ever made.
Yeah.
Obviously, they don't need my input.
And I think that's the crazy thing is that, like you said, there's just so many options for wrestling right now that there's not enough time in the in the week. And even with, smaller promotions with stuff like Fight TV, to where, hey, $20 gets you our monthly show. And, used to, you'd have to buy the DVD, or you'd have to buy the tape, or you just have to happen to live close enough to where you could drive and see that show. And now there's just like, it blows my mind when people, like former wrestling fans, just say like, I just can't find anything I like. And it's like, how? Like, there's just so much.
I think that this society has changed so much, and it's almost like, and I'm not saying everybody, I'm saying a large group of people, or maybe not even a large group, a lot of people, they want programming that caters specifically to them.
Mm-hmm.
And they expect things to be a certain way, the way they want it. And oftentimes they no longer have the appreciation for something that is necessarily not what they wanted. Like instead of seeing instead of looking at things from a positive point of view and thinking, oh, well, yeah, I'm not necessarily a fan of this, but, there was some good stuff out of this, stuff I didn't expect. They're already so closed-minded that, oh, this ain't what I wanted. Bah humbug. No Christmas this year for wrestling.
Right.
It's like, I mean, that's probably one of the saddest parts about it is we're entering into the biggest boom period in wrestling since the 90s, and people are mad about it, or people are upset with it, or they think this is bad or that's bad. Like, guys, be happy. This boom period impacts our whole industry, from the companies to the fans to the workers. Everybody should just be walking around smiling that loves wrestling right now. Like, thank you, Jesus. There's wrestling on almost every day. I can watch something almost every day.
And like you said,
Side of the Ring, or whatever the hell the Bella show's called now. They still have a show, or the Miz and Mrs., or NWA, MLW, World Class every now and again when we have a show. It's like, there's so many things out there. There is nothing to be upset about. We should only be thankful right now in the wrestling industry.
And like you said earlier, there's something on every show for you.
Absolutely.
If there's something specific you really like, you can see that on Monday Night Raw. You can see that on AEW, on NWA, on MLW, all of it. So,
at the end of the day, be happy that wrestling's in the position it's in. And guess what? If people watch the shows when they can, it's going to make the ratings go up. It's going to make the money made go up. And everybody is only going to keep flourishing that much more. So, it always drives me crazy, and it's WWE for the most part. WWE fans or people that turned against it. Like they, it's like they want WWE to do badly, and it's like, just because you like AEW, you don't have to want WWE to do badly.
Right.
In fact, you know, if anything, you should hope that AEW emerging makes WWE put out a better product. That's what you should hope for. You know, and you know, they may be in a creative slump sometimes, but there's most of the best talent in the world is in WWE.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or a lot of it. There's a lot of it in AEW now too, and there's a lot of it all over the world. There's so many people that are top notch that haven't been discovered yet. I mean, even the independent level flourishing. You know, like it's just such a great time to be a wrestling fan. So, you little party poopers out there, quit hating, start loving.
And it's just it's more accessible. I mean, I would say every part of the industry is more accessible than ever. You know, it's even with just how many wrestling schools there are throughout the United States, but the entire world, and how many of them are just continually like turning out great talent. I mean, Creative Pro in New York, I mean, like half of AEW's from Creative Pro whenever Lance Storm still had his school. I mean, Devon school, like everybody everywhere, there's just so much happening. Now, I want to pivot a little bit, going back to AEW specifically, Fuego del Sol. So what was that like for you to kind of watch all of that unfold and see him get that success and to reach that level?
You know, I mean, really, it's kind of like a proud dad moment. You know what I mean? And I've said this publicly numerous times. I mean, I don't even remember how long Fuego's worked for me now. Probably 5 years. And you know, with me being an old school person, you know, Fuego didn't always get his due with me. You know, he had to work to get it, and he stayed and worked and worked and worked until like one day I wisened up and was like, you know, I even apologized to him way like a couple of years ago, whenever it was. I was like, man, I said, you know, just because it wasn't necessarily my thing, I didn't get it. It took me a little bit longer than most people to get it. And, you know, I can't say enough great things about him. I'm super proud of him. You know, it's funny is I actually missed when he got signed. I mean, they worked me. They straight worked me. I was watching it. You know, he lost the match, and then it went to commercial. I got so mad I turned the TV off, said a few words I can't say on here, and I went to sleep. And so I woke up the next day, and I looked at my phone. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. And so I went back and watched it, and I was so happy. I mean, you know, somebody, I can't remember who it was. They were like, well, aren't you upset that he left to like go to AEW? I'm like, well, first of all, he still works here, you know, when his schedule allows. But why would you be upset with somebody for a life-changing thing? I mean, he has a wife, he has kids, you know, he has a family. And it's like, I think your ultimate goal should always be wanting what's best for your people, you know, because whenever those people, whenever they're working for you, they're grinding with you for the hope that you're going to provide something special for them, or they're going to be able to have the opportunity to make something special for themselves. And, you know, it's your job to support them and help them get there. And, you know, it was a very cool moment in Wichita seeing Fuego wrestle Matt. Because, you know, it's the first show we've had back since before COVID. So it's been the first show since he signed. And, I mean, the boy's a star, man. And, you know, I used to always say towards the end, before COVID, I say he was our Rey Mysterio. But, you know, he's not. He's Fuego del Sol. And he is the only Fuego del Sol. So it's very amazing to see him on AEW. And he even got me watching that little internet thing they have. That thing with Sammy. Like, that's good laughs almost every single week.
Yeah.
And I like stupid humor. I'm an easily amused person. So I find those shows really funny. So I can be happier for him. You know, I hope he eventually gets a lot more time on Dynamite. You know? But you know, that's you know, it's cool for Sammy too to see Sammy do what he's done.
Well, you know, it's great to see a guy like that succeed, especially in this day and age with the ways you can get over in this business. And he used it to his maximum effort. You know, you love seeing a guy like that you've seen here. You know, we're from Oklahoma City, and we've seen him literally in our backyard, and to see him flourish like that on national TV, it's awesome.
It makes all of us Oklahomans proud.
Yeah.
You know, anybody that's followed his journey, like, you know, I said, you know, it was his birthday a couple of days ago. I sent him a message. I said, man, you know, I told you I'm proud of you numerous times. I said, but, you know, so I'm proud of the hope that you've given everybody from around here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all of the workers that are hoping for that same thing, you know, like, you know, people need to understand that too, that him making it didn't just impact him and his family, but it also instilled hope in a lot of workers from this area that, you know, if you work hard, stay humble, you know, that can be you too. And I think that's an important message from that. You know, I mean, he worked and worked and worked. He did everything that was asked of him there. You know, that whole pay your dues, like he paid them. And, you know, that can be anybody out there that puts in that work and that is so relentless with the dedication like he was, you know, because he's come so long in 5 years. Him and Sammy both, you know, their first match ever against each other was for me 5 years ago in Broken Bow. And, you know, they've come so far since that match.
Yeah.
It's just amazing to see.
And it's like you said, it gives hope for everybody. I mean, just the fact that door has been cracked open a little bit more, because it feels like for Oklahoma and for Texas, it's been closed a little bit more than it has been historically. And now we're seeing it open back up again to like, hey, you know, if that doesn't make you want to buckle down even more, you know, I don't know what will.
You know, I mean, but it's got to be something that you do for yourself. You know, I think a lot of people, like, they feel entitled sometimes, or they expect you to give things to them. And it's like, work for it. You know, like any other job. You know, your job isn't going to, I mean, unless they're shorthanded like people are now, they might do it then. But your job is not just going to promote you or make you a manager or something if you don't deserve it, or if you don't put the work in. And, you know, like being a wrestler, the work is like, get in the gym. You know, like I mean, there's some characters that are omitted from that, you know, and I mean, everybody knows what characters they are, but get in the gym, get professional gear, practice working, practice talking, take as many matches as you can get to get experience, work in different places. I mean, there's so many different things, you know, there's a checklist, and most people are aware of which boxes they need to check, and you know, the ones that aren't, hopefully they figure out which ones they need to check and they work on it, because nothing's going to be given to you. I think that's a good example of the Fuego story too. Nothing's going to be given to you. I mean, look how long he worked to get that contract. And people are like, some guy was like, man, he lost so many matches, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you just don't get it. You don't get it. It didn't matter. You know, it didn't matter. Once he was over, he was over. That's always cracked me up anytime I ran into somebody where they're like, yeah, man, you know, like I probably can't lose this match. Like, okay. Gotcha.
That just told you everything you need to know about that person.
You know, it does. You know, what's funny is I think it's probably a year or so, I would never call finishes. And I mean, I don't want to expose too much of the business on here, but I would leave it up to people on purpose to figure it out. And if you couldn't figure out what was best for what we were doing, then I knew you weren't in the right place.
I you know, you talk about putting in the work and everything. I went to AEW Dynamite in Garland, Texas earlier this year. And
beautiful venue.
It was a wonderful place. The crowd was,
you know, that's
amazing.
owned by a school system. Did you know that?
I did not.
That is owned by Garland Public School.
That's amazing.
But carry on. That always blew my mind, because I actually saw that venue a couple of years before they ran there. And that blew my mind that a school has to cut it.
Well, and I texted Landon as we were filing in, you know, they filmed dark and dark elevation and all that before and after. And as we were all filing in, all we heard was, we want Fuego chants. We want Fuego. And I texted Landon, and I was like, Fuego's one of the most over people in this building right now. and we're about to see Britt Baker and John Moxley and, you know, all these crazy people, and everyone's chanting, "We want Fuego. We want Fuego." And when he finally showed up, the roof blew off the place. I wouldn't say it was the best pop of the night, but he was insanely over.
He earned every one of those. No, he did. He earned all of those chants.
I believe it.
And it's amazing to see our area back him like that because he deserved it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just like how natural and organic it was. You can't force that, just the way it naturally happens. Now you can enhance that. Like you can catch on to it and be like, okay, hey, that's the direction we need to go. And it's awesome to see that. So to stick a pin in that, I want to take it a little bit of a different direction for you, Jerry. Do you remember your earliest memory of wrestling? Maybe the first time you saw it, the first time you heard about it, whatever your earliest experience with professional wrestling was.
This is our favorite question to ask.
Absolutely. I remember I was young. I was really young. Remember flipping through the channels, and I came across this guy that was larger than life. He was, tan, muscled up, blonde headed, Hulk Hogan. And I was hooked. From the minute I saw it, I was hooked. And I remember after that, I would go to the local video stores, whether it be the local one in the town where I'm from, Long Grove, or Blockbuster Video in Ardmore. And I rented every wrestling movie they had over time, both of them, every wrestling movie that they had. So I could just watch as much wrestling as possible. And, I remember growing up and just loving wrestling. And I wanted to be either an athlete or a wrestler when I grew up. And my athletic career was just not going anywhere. And, I actually, I remember whenever I figured out wrestling was a work, I was in the 4th grade, and it was funny because I used to fight all the time when I was younger. I don't, I guess I still fight now, but I remember this kid was tormenting my girlfriend at the time in the 4th grade. And so I ran up, I was running hard, and I hit him with like the Ultimate Warrior clothesline. And the guy just turned around and looked at me like I was an idiot. So, it was like a startling revelation, So I punched the kid a couple times in the face. That was real. And then we were over by some concrete, and I DDT'd him on the concrete, and that was real. But at the time, his face was like bloody, but he was a trooper. He never told on me. I think he still doesn't like me, but he didn't tell on me.
Hey, there you go.
So, good looking out. But I remember thinking to myself, like, why did the Ultimate Warrior clothesline not work? And, most of the time, like, finding out about Santa Claus is traumatic, when you're a kid. And it was traumatic to me too. But, going home that day and telling my mom what happened, and my mom having to explain to me that wrestling was a work, that was right up there with Santa Claus. It was like Santa Claus wrestling, So it was, but it was always like a real big dream of mine. Hogan and Sting were my guys. And I think really Hogan is the only person I haven't worked with that I really wanted to. My son is actually named after Hulk Hogan. His middle name is Hogan.
Wow.
I was nice enough to make it his middle name. So he never had to. It was kind of like my own inside joke for some reason. I don't know that he finds it funny. He used to find it was funny when he was a kid, but wrestling is such a magical thing for people. Whether it be kids or adults, I think it's magical in different ways. I think when you're a kid, you look up to these people, especially back then. They were like superheroes. Everybody that was in wrestling looked like a wrestler, and, I think you stick with it as you get older. It's one of the most loyal fan bases I've ever seen. But whether you're in the wrestling business or you're watching, and I think oftentimes wrestling is a getaway. It's like 2 to 3 hours. Like if you go to wrestling, you might leave with a whole truckload of friends, because wrestling is one of the most truly authentic, all-inclusive things that there is. It is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter what gender you are. You can go to wrestling and you're accepted. You have 2 to 3 hours to act a fool. Nobody gives a crap what you act like. It's accepted for whatever crazy reason. And you're all bonding over this one thing that you love, and it's, I think that's magical. I think at its core, wrestling is magical. And wrestling does, oftentimes it'll fill voids for people, and, I remember at certain points in life, wrestling did that for me. Whenever, it can make you feel important, can make you feel loved, can make you feel amazing to share it with other people. It can, if you're sitting by your buddy and this person comes out that both of you guys love and you're just losing your minds over, it's a moment. And so many moments throughout the years of watching professional wrestling. And I think it's one of those things that, it's like when you're in the wrestling business, if you go to your job, it's a job, you're invested in it, but it's a job. Wrestling, even though it's a business, can turn personal really fast because almost everybody in it loves it. Mm-hmm. And they love it with a passion. And, I think wrestling, for people with disabilities, wrestling is huge, because they don't get looked at any differently than us. They get looked at equally like they should at any point in life. Just like I said earlier about people, it doesn't matter the color of their skin or their gender, everybody should be looked at as equals, and they get that at wrestling. And I think they get that more so in wrestling than most forms of entertainment or sports anyways. And, that in itself makes it beautiful. And the more that wrestling has evolved, I think that's become, more to the forefront of things. And that's great too. I mean, to go someplace where you're not judged, and you're accepted, that's powerful stuff to people, and that should never be taken for granted. So I think wrestling, it always cracks me up people that don't like wrestling. I mean, you're always going to have these wrestling haters, but I think the large majority of wrestling haters, they don't understand it, or they're not willing to let their mind go like that. If that makes sense.
That's very well put. I mean, that's hitting it right on the head.
Yeah. I mean, it's just there's just so many profound experiences that can be had in wrestling. I know for me, going to the Rumble when they were in Houston a couple of years ago and being there for Edge coming out of retirement. And it was just one of those, for me, for someone stuck in Oklahoma, and it's okay, all the big shows, they're skipping us. All the big shows are skipping Oklahoma
They skip
City.
Oklahoma all the time.
Yeah. And it was for me, I just remember leaving that night thinking diehard fans always talk about their moment of I was there for that. And it was I finally got to have that moment. And it was just cool. Now I just want everyone to have that moment to say hey, I was there when this happened.
It's tough to go back to watching it on TV, whether you see a good independent show, whether you see one of the major companies or whatever. It's always tough to go back to watching it on TV because it's just not the same feeling.
Right.
There's just this feeling of being there. I remember I was at whatever WrestleMania the Undertaker lost. Can't even remember what it was.
30.
And man, there you go. There we go. And it was crazy to me when Undertaker lost. It was you look around, it's man, if you didn't know better, you'd think these people lost a family member. And then WWE was real smooth putting the women's match after that because it was some battle royal, I think it was, or something. And their booking was very strategic because they knew people needed a minute to just be oh my God, the streak is over.
Yeah.
And it didn't even have to be the women's match. It could have been any battle royal, but their strategic booking. I mean, you talk about something wonderful. I mean, the advancements in women's wrestling is wonderful. You look at the women now, and they're just as good as the guys. And they, what's sad is they probably could have been the whole time if they weren't booked the way they were.
Mm-hmm.
And now to see them flourishing on the level that they are, I mean, that's amazing advancements in wrestling. I mean, to see women main event WrestleMania, crazy.
I've told my wife, talking about the moments, she didn't understand it when we first started dating. She'd never, her family
It's
didn't watch
valid.
wrestling.
It's valid.
She didn't understand it. And I told her I had tickets to ROH, to Ring of Honor. They were coming and doing a house show here. And I said, come with me. Come with me and just imagine the night. And
That's a very good way of putting it.
And
Which ROH show was this? Where was it, at Cox or not? Cox, whatever it's called?
it was at the convention center in
I
one of
think,
the side rooms.
Was Cody on that show?
Yes, he was.
Yeah, I did. I helped them with like the organization of all of that. Yeah.
And
good show. Very good. That's when ROH was peaking too.
oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, just come to it and you'll understand. And so she came to that show and she saw how I reacted to it, how my friends reacted to it, you know, watched good wrestling and great characters and stuff. And ever since, she's been a fan. She's not as huge of a fan, but
that's okay. That's okay.
But that's okay. Yeah. And now her favorite person in the world is Hikaru Shida, and she loves it. She especially loves AEW, and I think that's why I watch so much AEW, is because I know she will sit and watch it with me.
I think AEW is easier to watch on people that aren't necessarily huge wrestling fans, just because it is a lot of mixed in entertainment along the way. I mean, it's I think it's just a different product.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think they definitely took advantage of people wanting an alternative, which is fine. I mean, because they've delivered on it. But, you know, I think AEW makes you feel like you're more a part of them, whereas oftentimes WWE gives you the vibe that they're better than you.
Yeah.
I think it's like two different things. You know, I always use this, it sounds silly, and I'm probably one of the few that watch something like this and get that out of it. But I always compare it to like press conferences. You know, WWE, when they have a press conference, very professional. And I'm not knocking either one of them. Like I said, any of my opinions on this whole thing are not knocking anybody, because I don't care to do that. You know, WWEs are very professional. They present this. I mean, and I get it. Like, you know, like this is a professional match, whatever the case may be. But oftentimes it can come off as they're better than you. Yeah. Whereas, you know, I think of the AEW press conference that they did before the company started. You know, WWE's is indoors, everybody's in suits, it's all professional, whatever. What does AEW do? They're outside of a football stadium. I think it was a football stadium. There's pyros going on. There's everybody that's coming out to talk. A lot of them are just in regular clothes. But what are they doing? They're walking through the people. And what are they doing by walking through these people? They're conveying that they're just like you. And you should support them because they're just like you. It's like the Bullet Club, for example. The Bullet Club, by the time they got in Hot Topic, everybody and their dog thought they were a member of the Bullet Club. You know, that's smart marketing. You know? And so it's very strategic and it's very intelligent. You know, but like I said, I'm probably the only person that caught the press conference thing, because I don't know too many people that are so strange that they would pick something out like that.
Well, I mean,
you know, to me, it was a good analogy.
Even down to them, it's the announcers. Like, you don't see JR in his suit every week. He's in his polo and he looks like the people that are watching the show.
You know, I think it's very telling looking at the crowds. Look at the crowd difference.
Yeah.
How many women and children do you see at AEW? Not very many. You know, it's more of a way heavy 18 to 34 demographics.
Right.
Way heavy. You know, and that's what I think, that's definitely what they're going for. So they're doing a fantastic job. You know, I think that's part of WWE's problem sometimes too, is I feel like they cater way more towards children. And that's fine. But the bad thing is, if you look at their demographics, the children's aren't the one watching it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
You know, I think the kid audience has gone from I cannot remember, 2 to 17 a few years ago was around, I think 23% of the audience. I think it's down to 10.
Wow.
Somewhere around there. The you know, the heaviest demographic in wrestling is like 50 and older, which is not good for the future of wrestling. You know, AEW's come on strong in the demographics outside of children, but if you don't find a way to make fans out of young children, this success cannot carry on like it is. And I think anybody inside the industry would agree with that. When you look at those numbers, it is scary. The demographics are very off, and I think the numbers that I compared them to were like 7 years ago. So hopefully, but part of that too is times have changed so much. There's so much for you to watch. You can get on your phone and watch whatever, YouTube. Things are just so different. But we have to find a way to get the kids back involved in wrestling.
I've talked about it. I work in the racing world, in race car world, and
that's cool.
we have an issue where our crowd is old. How are we going to get the kids, and specifically teenagers and young adults, back to the racetrack? And we have to do it before our audience dies off.
Yeah, that's just a harsh reality. You have to think now, like, what are kids turning to for attention? Or not attention, but where is their attention going? Video games, TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram. Facebook is where we target most of our audience. Not kid heavy on Facebook.
Right.
A lot of people target Twitter. Not kid heavy either.
No.
So I think definitely it's going to cause a lot of us in industries like wrestling and racing to really think, like, it's going to really make us put a lot of our thinking caps on and figure out what can we do to get that lapsed audience back.
Right.
AEW's done a great job of bringing back some of the lapsed audience that was tired of WWE. They've done a great job with that. But we got to figure out a way to get the kids back.
And that's the big thing. You've got to create new fans that are going to be fans for life.
You can't, in WWE's case, you can't rely on like the Bill Goldbergs, which I guess people are sick of him anyways. But you can't rely on people like that to come in and save the day, or even a Brock Lesnar. You can't rely on them to come in and save the day.
Right.
Yeah, we've talked about it on here before. It's such an interest, building stars is such a dynamic because, established stars draw. Upcoming stars really don't draw because they're not established yet.
Exactly.
They haven't gotten to that point. So it's like this tricky balance of, okay, we need the established star power here to keep eyes on it, but we've got to take advantage of the eyes being here to build new stars so that we can phase those out and we've got our next generation. And it's hard to do that. I think, good and bad with like all the purging WWE did. You had a lot of established stars. Yeah. You had a lot of established stars gone. And
but were they superstars?
Exactly. And now we're seeing we were talking about NXT earlier. Some of those guys like Braun Breaker is getting pushed crazy hard. And it's just like,
beyond me why they will not give him that last name.
Exactly.
I know they're not huge fans of Scott, but come on, let's do something smart for merchandising. Are you guys that prideful, that petty?
Before you came on, I told Landon, I go, I am way over with Braun Breaker. He is way over with me. But
me too.
Hate
me too.
That
Love
name.
That name is so 80s generic cartoon character.
Make him Braun Steiner. It's not that much different.
He is a bona fide star. Look at him. He has the look. He wears the Steiner gear.
Looks like his dad, talks like his uncle. Like it's
that drives me crazy. Like, Vince is notorious for this, I guess, a lot. But you keep thinking he's going to turn over this new leaf. Because, for years, they started letting people use their names.
Right.
But who knows how deep that heat is. I know it's there on both sides. Because I've worked with Scott for 6 years now. But, to me, that's just so petty. So petty. But, somebody brought this up to me. A Hall of Famer brought this up to me. I never thought about it like this. He was like, who is the last superstar that was really creative? Superstar. And I was like, I guess Cena. Really? I mean,
Yeah.
because he said a superstar is somebody that, I mean, maybe Roman, but he said a superstar is somebody that when you go through the airport, that somebody that doesn't watch wrestling all the time knows immediately who that person is.
He transcends.
Yes. And he said, do you think CM Punk is that person? I said, no. And I like CM Punk, but he's like, if you don't watch wrestling, would you know who that is? I was like, no, because he looks like everybody else. I mean, not me. He's got more hair than I got. It looks like he lives in his too. But, you know, I said, he's like, who would you recognize from now? And I was like, Cena, Roman, maybe Roman, Brock.
Yeah.
And that's it. You know, I think there's a fine line between being a star and a superstar. And I think part of that aura of a superstar is they look the part, you know, and I mean, props to Cena. Cena carried that ball longer than anybody, you know, and I'm not even a huge Cena fan. In fact, I don't even like watching Cena wrestle, but much respect to John Cena for carrying it like he did, but they can't keep relying on these people like that. That's definitely not helping the younger fan base.
You know, a superstar whenever you may not like him, but you notice the absence.
Absolutely.
And when Cena left, you noticed that absence. I wasn't a huge Cena fan, but when he came back, it was exciting.
Yeah.
Because he filled the void again that they haven't filled up yet.
And then he left, you know, so it's like whenever they leave, then what, you know?
Yeah.
He left and now we're on to Brock Lesnar again.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, he's back, you know,
until he's not.
so, I mean, it is what it is, you know, and Brock is a legit draw, you know, I mean, he's a legit superstar. You know, it cracked me up whenever, you know, people were talking about the CM Punk return. They were like, oh, you know, so I had this conversation with some guy. He was like, oh man, like it was so loud. You know, there was like, it was so loud. And then like, they tried to bring Brock Lesnar back. And I was like, let me put this into perspective for you. It was loud because it was his hometown. I said, and they were very smart how they pulled this off. It was in his hometown. It was in an arena full of 15,000 people. So obviously, you know, you're comparing it to SummerSlam and Allegiant Stadium, which is a humongous stadium. You're comparing a 15,000 seat venue to the acoustics of a 55,000 seat venue. Of course, the acoustics are going to be louder in a full 15,000 seat arena because it's smaller.
Yeah.
But a 55,000 seat venue like Allegiant Stadium is not going to have those acoustics because it's so wide open. But no matter how you paint that picture, 15,000 people were there for CM Punk, 50,000 were there for Brock Lesnar. And that is fact.
Yeah, I always say this. So going back to the Royal Rumble when Edge returned, like incredible pop. Wasn't the loudest one of the night. The loudest one of the night was Brock Lesnar getting eliminated from the Rumble because that's when he was doing it. Hey, I'm going to start at 1. And I mean, seeing the people in front of me like just coming unglued because they're like, great, Brock's going to win and he's going to be crammed down our throats. And then he gets eliminated. You would have thought like Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold, The Rock, everybody came back and for one night, like you would have thought the greatest thing ever happened because of how happy they were to see Brock eliminated. But it's like, I mean, that's the testament of how great of a heel Brock is like, if he was able to outdo Edge's retirement comeback reaction by just being eliminated.
There are no baby faces without heels. The
Exactly.
antagonist drives the biggest business. If there is no antagonist, I mean, the business is not flourishing.
Absolutely. Because then, you know, what's the payoff of somebody beating someone else? You know, we talk about how, you know, MJF, and the Blood Hunter, and there's just a handful of others that you could say are true heels. You know, they're not trying to get their merch over. They're not trying to, you know, get something trending on Twitter. It's like their goal is they want you to pay money to see them lose because of how much you hate them. And it's like, it all goes back to the emotional investment. And
Absolutely.
it's like, that's a lost art in my mind. Is
It is in a lot of ways. I mean, you know, I get it on an independent level. You know, you have to make your money, but it's hard to be a true heel whenever you're having this match and you're being this character. But then when merch time rolls around, you're going out and you're being something totally different.
right.
Hey,
Yeah.
buddy, I know I flipped you off a minute ago in my match, but will you buy one of my 8x10s?
Yeah.
Come on.
It's
Throw in a
like,
t-shirt for a discount because I'm a nice guy.
You
know.
You know a heel is working the right way when I've seen a video of MJF at an autograph signing and it was free for everyone there. And whenever you got to his table, he said, yeah, $20. And they were like, well, it's a free signing. And he goes, I don't care. $20. And it's not because he cares about the money. He's caring about
it's
the
the
heat.
principle of it. I think if you're going to do those things, I think that's a great way to do it. I think you have to stay in character the whole time.
mm-hmm.
Because guess what? Like, people want to believe. They want to buy into it. So you would probably sell merchandise, possibly even more, if you just stayed in character.
Right.
Because then you're giving these people an interaction with your character, which is what they're paying to see. You know, they're paying to see Hulk Hogan. They're not paying to see Terry.
Right. Exactly.
You know, I remember being a kid and like I legit hated Ric Flair, legit hated him, like with a passion, because somehow he always weaseled out of it. And I remember getting older thinking, man, like that dude was seriously great at his job, like on a serious level, to have some kid hating him that bad.
Well, before we start getting out of here, we wanted to talk to you a little bit about your own promotion.
Oh, crap. I forgot. Hey, it's good to have general wrestling talk.
Right. That's what we love to do, is we just love to sit and talk wrestling with friends and especially with people that we don't get to have these conversations with. You know, we've got to pick your brain about wrestling as a whole. And, you know, but we also want to, you know, try our best to get your promotion over, you know.
Man, I was doing a horrible job at it, so I'm glad you guys are doing a better job.
So,
well, we talked about it just, you know, first post-COVID show back in Wichita.
Yeah.
And the Sandman Bloodhunter match, Chef's Kiss, Fuego versus Matt Hardy. It was a great card, like a great card
really
back.
Man, everybody worked so hard from top to bottom. It was a really great day. I love Wichita. Some of the best fans in pro wrestling. They're so appreciative, and you know that makes you work even harder for that type of crowd. You know, it's the first time I've seen Jacob Fatu in 5 years.
Wow.
Man, he was good then, but he's gotten so good. Yeah, match with him and Moonshine. Both of them are very, very special. Very great match. Blood Hunter and Sandman, great match. You know, Blood Hunter, very physical, so imposing too. You know, believable.
It felt like an old school just brawl, and
yeah.
I mean, it was a brawl.
Yeah, and you know that to me, that's what it needs to be, believable. You know, Fuego and Matt, of course, that was special. You know, Gino Medina and Gideon Bain, you know, two other good talents. Kyle Hawk, great talent. Trying to think of everybody on there. Kurt Gannon, Double D, great talent. Marty Bill and Erica put on a hell of a match. You know, it was good to be back in the fold. You know, it was you know, you can try. It's like almost, I always say wrestling's kind of like the mafia. You can like try to get out, but you're really not getting out.
Right.
You know? I mean, I think I'm one of the league leaders in retirements, but you know, especially physical wrestling. Like, man, I try to retire from physically wrestling all the time, and somehow I end up doing it again. I was laughing before I went out there. It's like, man, I'm 40 years old and I'm still wrestling. But it was a great way to come back. Whenever COVID hit, that was tough. Wrestling companies can't really go out and get those PPE loans.
Right.
That's true. Yeah.
So I really thought at that point, I thought it was done. And then, it was a big decision for me to decide to come back. And, before I made that decision, I thought my best days were already past. I've been very blessed to do a lot of things I never thought possible. God definitely gave me more than I deserved. And, when the chips started falling with us returning, now I don't think that's the case. I don't think that I feel like everything that happened before was to prepare us for what we're about to go through. Us securing the CG TV deal for the streaming service was a big deal. I've turned down a lot of streaming deals over the years because it's usually those, we'll show some commercials and we'll give you a percentage of it. Like, no. This is, to my knowledge, from probably one of the largest independent wrestling deals ever. And that was a huge blessing. We have the show coming up in December, Christmas Star Wars, with the Von Erichs and so many amazing talents on there. It'll be the first time that Eric Embry and Kevin Sullivan have worked together as the booking team in person. We've been having conference calls every week with the three of us. They work so well together. Two of the most brilliant wrestling minds anybody could be blessed. We have a new championship coming out, the Welterweight Championship. We're going to debut that in January or February. It's going to be based off of the light heavyweight championship from the original world class that Eric was the most prominent title holder of. It's going to be 175 pounds or less, and that's a shoot. If you weigh over that, you might even have a scale there. You can't get in there. So somebody's got to be cutting to get down to that weight.
Hey, I love that.
I think it's great. That was Kevin Sullivan's idea. Great idea. I'm telling you, those two together, they work like clockwork. They don't even need me. I don't even think I need to be in those conversations sometimes. Starting in January, we have a full slate of shows next year. Our goal is to do at least 40. Wow. We have 24 with our two home venues, 12 each, of Southern Junction in Irving, which is where the December show's at, and the NITEC Center in North Richland Hills. Our goal next year is we're going to have possibly 3 different shows. We're going to have our main show. We will have a show dedicated exclusively to CG TV and a show dedicated to YouTube. So we're going to produce 3 shows. We're also preparing for a full return to Oklahoma, which is a big deal for us. We haven't really been active in the pro wrestling scene in Oklahoma on a full-time basis in, I don't even know, 3 or 4 years. I feel like it's a good time for us to return to Oklahoma. I can't really talk a lot about this because it's not public knowledge yet, but we're also going to be venturing into boxing and MMA. We're fixing to become the first promotion to ever do all 3.
Wow.
And so I think that's a pretty big deal for us.
Yeah.
Just the stars align sometimes. And, I never saw myself doing either of those. I'm not a big fan of, one of those. Really either of those. But I think it's definitely an interesting challenge. And, I think we have the crew to pull it off. Our wrestling product is, we're looking forward to really expanding and building upon what we had before, but making it even better. I think eventually down the road, you're going to see us host a show that probably features all 3 products at the same time. Wow. We'll definitely see the return of Oklahomania this year. Just one thing after another. It's we're going to try to put together, we're looking at a show, World Class Forever, which will be a big tribute to the original World Class in a lot of ways, conventions, panel, all of that. It's weird to be going from like, you're done with this to now all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, man, I am very blessed and my wife supports me, which is a big deal. She goes to all of my stuff. I adore her for that. on top of putting up with me every day. And, our kids, it's a good time. And it's a good time to make these moves. And, for anybody watching, you can go check us out on all of the social media stuff. I don't know where at. You can go to our website, worldclassprowrestling.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't, because that's where we post all of our new content first. It's been great working with Hannibal at the Hannibal TV. He's done an amazing job on our YouTube. He's so knowledgeable with this stuff. And I think that's a key. It's no different than working with Eric and Kevin. I think that's the key to building something bigger than you. Surrounding yourself with people that you can trust and people that are better at this stuff than you are.
Yeah.
And, I'm really looking forward to, working with amazing talent. That show in October was great. The show in December is going to be great. And there's so much talent that's came around, just being gone since COVID that I haven't seen. And that's exciting to see that talent. The independent level, it's not just WWE and AEW. Whenever they're doing well, it trickles down to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you guys. Keep up the great work.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we talked about it at the very beginning. The boom is great for everybody. And
it is. I mean, it's, AEW, what they did during COVID too, like AEW Dark. I mean, that's one of the best gifts that wrestling has had in a long time, to be able to see that many independent talents wrestling on a show like that. That's a huge blessing for everybody that was involved in that production. It was almost like, I don't keep up with it religiously. Every week when I would see the little match cards pop up and stuff, I was so excited to see so many talents from around here get those opportunities. So many talents that have worked for me. And, it's always good seeing my boy Justin Roberts on AEW too. He's one of my favorite people. So it was good to see him get back in the fold because, he's right up there with me with the Fink. It's like Howard Finkel, Justin Roberts, everybody else. and he takes so much pride in what he does. It was funny. We had a show in Arkansas, and I had to be the ring announcer. People don't realize how hard these jobs are. And, I tried to keep it a well-kept secret. He's like, where's the video of that show at? And I was like, leave me alone. And I think it was Randy Price, our production guy. And, Randy he's one of the guys behind the scenes. He wrestles as Retro Randy. People have no idea how talented this dude is. He's one of the best producers in the game, best editors. I mean, the dude is top notch. I think he somehow slipped that to Justin because Justin, he's like, yeah, man. He's like, I saw that show. And I was like, how? Never told me how. And he was like, you really weren't as bad as I thought you'd be. I was like, oh, thanks. He's like, you yell on the mic too much. I was like, thanks for the tip. I don't think that has anything on like my commentary picture. Whenever we were first, I don't know if either of you guys saw When Worlds Collide. No, it wasn't Collide. It was Rise of the Revolution at Firelink Arena. After it was over, we did DVDs, right? And I'm so cheap. I thought that me and Coyote could do the commentary. We sit down to do it. By the time the show was over, I was like, man, that was bad. Ooh, man, that job sucks. I mean, that job does suck. That takes talented people to do that job. So, I start working with JR and, working under JR and me and Gene for a couple of years. Learned so much. JR taught me how to write TV. So we produced these DVDs. We're at When Worlds Collide, which was the first show he worked with me on. And he's sitting there at the merch table and he's like, you're not going to give me one of those DVDs? And I was like, I mean, I guess if you want one. They're thinking, I hope you don't watch it with the volume up.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you're only the greatest of all time.
Right.
So the next time I saw him, he was like, yeah, I watched that DVD. And I was like, he's like, it was pretty good. And I was like, oh, thanks. He goes, who did the commentary? And I was like, me and Coyote, sir, and we know it was bad. He's like, bad? It was effing awful. Like, thank you, sir. I will not do it again, I promise.
Learned your lesson.
So many props to all the commentators and ring announcers out there. Keep doing your thing. I'm proud of it. I wish I could have been one of you, but it's not a card.
Oh man. Well,
You
seriously.
know, the beautiful thing about wrestling, one of the many beautiful things, is if you're dedicated, if you want to be in the wrestling business, and you can go into it with an open mind, it's like getting on a bus. You know, there's so many seats on the bus. And if you really love wrestling, you respect it, you'll be good to it. There's a seat for you on that bus. It may not be the seat that you want, but there's a seat for you on that bus. You know, a lot of people don't know, you know, I always wanted to be a wrestler, but I never wanted to be a promoter. Never. And, you know, what's funny is I've been promoting since my very first match. Maybe I realized early on subconsciously, like, bro, you're not very good. You're going to have to promote for anybody that you wrestle. You know, maybe it was like subconsciously, like, Jerry, you suck, bro. You have to run this thing to even get some airtime. You know, it's like, oh, you were 2-time champ. Yeah, you were that promoter that put the belt on yourself, bro. Yeah. You know what I mean? And, you know, the funny time is I don't think either time that was my idea, but somehow it ended up. I would never take that title again. It's too much trouble. You know, one time I left it in a town. I had to go back. They saved it for me, thank God. I straight left the title. I was like, But, you know, there's a seat for everybody. And you just got to be comfortable enough with yourself to allow yourself to sit in the seat that you need to be in. And I think whenever you do that, the rest just falls into place. You know, I mean, in those seats, I mean, like I said, it can be any job there is. It's just up to you if you're going to take it.
Absolutely. I think that's a perfect way to end it.
I agree. You know, this has been our best show by far. The insight that you brought.
You guys don't have to lie to me.
Hey, it's
Seriously,
it's the
this
truth.
was one of the best conversations that we've ever had on this show. And
Well, thank you, guys.
we
I
really
appreciate it.
appreciate you coming
I have
on.
fun.
And this has been usually about an hour and a half. I'm sitting here going, yeah, I'm ready to get done with this, but I could do this all night. This was great.
I appreciate you guys a lot for having me on. You know, I hope everybody that watches this or listens to it, you know, I hope you take the time to appreciate what we're going through right now, because it is a special time in wrestling. You know, the 90s will never be recreated. They won't be. But this is a whole new special period. Appreciate it. You know, don't be that guy that's getting on your keyboard every night or every day after a show and picking apart everything that's wrong. Talk about the things that were right. And that doesn't even have to do with wrestling. It has to do with life. You know, be positive. Talk about all the wonderful things in life. You can sit there and gripe about everything that you don't have every day, or you can be thankful for everything that you do have. You know, be good to each other and love each other. It's not that hard. I mean, some people forget the golden rule. Even I do on occasion. But, I mean, treat others the way you want to be treated. You know, put your faith in God. You know, you don't have, I used to think a long time ago, like one of my best friends, lifelong best friends, he's always been like a really hardcore Christian. That's great. You know, I always thought like, you know, there wasn't a place for me for a long time because I wasn't perfect. You know, God doesn't need you to be perfect. God just needs you to have faith, trust the process. God doesn't work on our time either. He works on his time. There are often times I wish he worked on my time, but you know, it happens when it's supposed to. And, you know, like mental health is such a big deal right now. If anybody's struggling with depression or anxiety or anything like that, you know, feel free to send me a message if you don't have anybody else to talk to. You know, we're never alone. You know, it's wrestling community should stick together, should support each other, should love each other, shouldn't be tearing each other down and tearing everybody's products down. There's no need for that.
Absolutely. Well, Jerry, seriously, thank you again for giving us your time tonight.
Oh, thank you guys. It's a pleasure. We'll have to do it again.
Absolutely.
We'd love to have you again.
I mean, I could probably do this for like 7 hours, but we don't.
Yeah, there we go. I think to sum up everything, do the work and keep an open mind.
Yeah, just, you know, be respectful of the business and be respectful of yourself and others. It'll all fall in place.
Yeah. And it's not hard to do.
Oftentimes the people make it way harder than what it is.
Exactly.
Man. Well, Jerry, seriously, thank you again.
Thank you, guys. Everybody have a great, I guess it'll be morning, right, when this drops. Everybody have
Yeah,
a great
sure.
day tomorrow. Have a blessed day. Tell the people close to you that you love them.